I guess I'm just like the regular kind of car guy. Started when I was really young. So I don't remember a time when I wasn't in love with cars. It just started with the sort of playing around with matchboxes and like in your uncle's car, your dad's car. I would sit in the driveway sometimes and just pretend to be driving. So it started from there. And then I guess like all little boys, you carried that on. And then somewhere around when I came back to the Philippines, I had a little car detailing business in Australia as well. So I sold cars. I had a car detailing business. And when I came back to Manila in 1998, I was first on radio, but then a friend of mine just happened to start a car magazine. I mean, it was the craziest thing at the time. It was around 2001. And he asked me if I'd like to write. And that's pretty much how I got started into it. And I was very lucky because it was not a very structured, probably, I'm not sure if the word's structured, but back then, these guys weren't from like a publishing house. Nobody had experience in publishing, writing, or anything. We were just all car enthusiasts. So it gave me my break because I guess there were no qualifications needed at the time. And that's how I got started with C Magazine 2001. And then I stayed there till like 2013. Well, I love what I do. It's getting very crowded right now, I guess, in the space. So a lot of people are doing it. Obviously, the platforms have been democratized, so anyone can now have their own channel and stuff. In that regard, it's getting busier. But I still love what I do. I still love sort of any new car, being able to just walk up to it and appreciate it for what it is. As far as my hosting and all that's concerned, that is really, it's a really fun part of my life because especially nowadays as everything's online, I really enjoy having that personal human connection with people. And it's a space that, I really get to, like being up there on stage and being able to speak to so many people in the same room and not behind the screen or some kind of digital device. It just reminds me what we're here for. I mean, we're here to connect. And sometimes when we replace that with all our digital connections, we wonder why we feel a little bit kind of hollow at the end of the day. It's because you can't really replace the real connections you have in life. And so I really do appreciate my offline work perhaps the most right now. I really enjoy that the most because it's a time I can really spend with people, get the energy. You can't get the same energy online. So I would say that this is probably the happiest phase of my life. I started at a very different time. So I don't know how much of my story will apply to the new generation. But I guess there are basic principles that never change. One is, well, when we got into the space, everybody was doing it, and this is what I can probably relate to not changing. When we got into the space in 2001, there was a very established sort of order that was there. I mean, it was a newspaper-dominated scene, and they had their own way of doing it, and we came in and we broke that sort of, system, I guess, because we came in with an entirely new approach. It was new to the Philippines. It wasn't new in general because we were coming in really speaking the truth about how we felt about cars. And at that point, that wasn't what was going on. There were a lot of just press releases. The industry was very immature in that regard. So the criticism that people would say, like the readers and stuff, is that they felt they were reading brochures, just reprinted brochures in the newspaper because it didn't even fall under motoring. When I got there, it was under business. So you can imagine what the beat looked like. It was, the car companies handing over their business press releases to the press. And so from the enthusiasts, you never really got to feel the car. When you read something, you never got to feel somebody's opinion, somebody's feeling about it. So I would say with that, try to find something that nobody's doing. That would be my advice right now if you're going to come in. Now, it could be a little bit harder because there's so many more players, but it doesn't change fundamentally that the players tend to be all doing the same thing because that tends to be natural human behavior. They see something that works and everybody patterns around that. So I would think that if you see that now, try to break that mold, try to be the disruptor. If you can actually see a spot where you could sort of do it differently, find that route because you'll be the only one in that space. It's better to be a pioneer or a trailblazer than somebody that's just always following, because you'll never catch up. So that probably still remains the same. You just have a lot more people that you're dealing with. But then also, things have gotten easier. Back when I started, you couldn't just start your own channel. You had to put down a few million pesos to be able to put a guarantee down with your printer that you're going to print a certain amount before you got taken seriously. So we removed that barrier. So it all evens out in the wash. I think what remains is people have to be creative. People have to keep sort of finding out what is the void in the market and then trying to fill that. Well, it's not a whole lot to tell because the bulk of the story is the waiting. That's the curse of the LC, is the waiting, the long lines to get one. And so if there is a backstory, it's just something that I've always wanted ever since I was young. I remember one of my clients having an 80 series Land Cruiser. At the time, that was a brand new car. So you can imagine how long we're talking about back then. And as a young, I was just starting out. I was probably 23, 22, something like that. And I had this little business driving around Australia, well, the city that I lived in, and cleaning cars. And this Land Cruiser just was like, wow, one day, I don't know if I would love to own something like this, because it just seemed like the everything vehicle for me. And I just fell in love with the ruggedness, the reliability, the reputation, everything about it. And then so it just parked it in the back of my mind. And throughout my entire career going through this automotive scene, it actually just strengthened my resolve to get one, because no matter how many different cars I drove, I mean, I was driving everything from Lamborghinis, Paganis, you name it, the most exotic vehicles on earth, a Formula One car, for crying out loud. So I'd been exposed to all these cars. The more the Land Cruiser made sense to me, as if you could own only one, this would be it. And so that's about the backstory with that. So as soon as the 300 came out, I remember thinking, if you're going to get one, now at the beginning of the model cycle, not the first, I usually wait about a year or so, or 6 months a year, so that you don't get the first one off the bat. And then I just want to have the first of the new series, because I know that will be about 12 to 15 years before they upgrade that. If I say all around, yes, because I think that's what the Land Cruiser does well. It does everything well. I mean, you're going to get cars that are faster. You're going to get cars that are handle a little better, or there's so many different metrics you could say this does it better than the Land Cruiser. But when you put that all into one metric where everything counts, that for me, yes, I could safely say is the most well-rounded vehicle I've driven. Well, now that I'm not on the waiting list anymore. Yes, go! Everybody get a Land Cruiser. But before I got delivery, I'd be like, no, because I didn't want the line to get longer, no? But all jokes aside, for me, I mean, the cars are very personal things. So it's not something that you can say, oh, you should buy this, you should buy that. It's like music, you like what you like, you appreciate what you appreciate. But this has utility to it, so you really have to look at what it does for you. It does everything that I need and I want. You might have different priorities. You might not care about the extra space, but you might want more speed. You might want better handling. And that's what makes this whole thing great, is if there weren't so many variables involved in like thinking about how to buy a car, there wouldn't be car websites like this. There wouldn't be magazines out there. There wouldn't be TV shows and videos and stuff. It's the fact that we love to talk about them. It's only fairly new, so I mean, there's not a whole lot of time there with it, but during the first, I think it was the first month, could have been about first month or 6 weeks that I had the car. I took it camping, off-roading in a beach there in Zambales. It was so nice. It was such a bonding experience because, a lot of people were saying, oh, you're not going to take that thing off-road and, you're going to baby it. And I was like, no, I mean, I want to keep it stock, but I don't want to baby it too much because it's built for a purpose. And so to be able to use it within that purpose, that was a highlight for me. I had a little brand new puppy at the time as well. So took our puppy to the beach with us camping, slept on the top of the Land Cruiser because I put a tent on top. So great memories. It's a fantastic vehicle to get you to places. Remember, these things are tools. So don't be afraid to use your cars because they're really tools to get things done. If you're just going to keep them in the museum under glass and not enjoy them, sayang they're in. Just keep a screensaver on your computer. Enjoy your cars. Go out there and live the lifestyle. Yeah, it was very, very new. And I was in a car park and there's so many sensors on the Land Cruiser. The one place it didn't have a sensor was on the top, right? I was backing up and I was backing into a car park space and there was some piece of metal hanging down and it just gave it my first scratch. So that's my kamot, ano. Ang sakit. The first cut is the deepest. Okay, for car content creators, it goes back to you got to find your own voice. And you could be any creator, right? Whether it's car, food, whatever. Try to find your own voice because that's the only thing that's going to set you apart. That's the only thing that's going to make you unique. If you try to pattern yourself after every other person, there's no loyalty there. You might strike it every now and again. You might get the formula right. Like they say nowadays, there are formulas to videos. You need your hook, you need your call to action, you need your certain style. Okay, I can see that, but the problem there is you fall into this rut where you're relying on the system to float you to the top. There's no loyalty there because anyone can apply the same system and be exactly like you. So for you, in order for you to carve out your market share and loyalty, is you need to be unique. You need to be authentic. You need to give the audience something that they don't get from anywhere else. Now, if you can achieve that, then you've got your unique following. And that should be more important than your mass following. Because if you look at just numbers, you can buy numbers on social media now. There's no actual value to it. So it comes down to how engaged this following is. And that only comes from how authentic you are. So that's one. So that's for content creators. For hosting, same thing applies. You've got to be you. Because if you are just reading a script, anyone can read a script. You've got to set yourself apart. What is it that you provide that others can't? What is the scarcity there? It all comes down to that. If you are providing what everybody else provides, you're not creating any value. Be yourself. Be authentic. Go out there and make your mark. Okay, you could fall flat in your face, but that's part of it, all right? Now, the endorsers, I can't really give any advice for that because that's not something I think that you can really... It's not something I trained for. It's not something you do go to school for. An endorser is basically the culmination of if you've done all those other bits of your work correctly, you reach a certain point where people would like to get some of that image. So they become a stakeholder in the image that you've built. So the endorsements come as a result of everything else you've done properly, if that makes any sense. So if you do whatever you do and you do it well, you could be a prime candidate for an endorsement. So it's about doing what you do better than anybody else. So it doesn't matter. You could be a janitor. If you're the best janitor that we've ever seen, well, some janitorial firm will put you up on the billboard. I'm just using it as an example. It doesn't have to be cars or something glamorous. Usually when they look for endorsers, it's because you do what you do better than anybody else, or you built up a certain level of credibility within the area that you work in for people to want to borrow off that image. So that's the only advice I could give there, is just do what you do better than anybody else. Find that passion, find that calling, and give everything you have to it. And if you do stand out, then later endorsements become a result of that. I'd like to thank those who supported me, because it can be very tough, especially when you're, in my time when I went out there, it was a new thing. The name influencer wasn't even around then. So that's a really tough battle to get through, because you're trailblazing. You're doing something that nobody else, there's no template, there's no blueprint for this. So I'd like to thank all those who supported me in this journey, because it really is tough. When you're trying to convince somebody of a vision it's not even created yet. You don't have somebody there, an example in front of you, go, I'm going to be like him or her or whatever. Just give me 5 years or 3 years. No, you just have to sell them on the vision. So thank you to all of those who supported me for that, because I wouldn't be here without you.